who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome. Our first show of 2018.
Yeah. It's true. It's good to be back.
It's great to be back. I'm here with James St. James, literary sensation.
I'm first.
Yes, I'm just mixing it up.
Wow. It's never happened before.
And Tom Campbell, Chief Creative Officer here at World of Wonder. And I'm Fender Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder. So, you know, every week we count down the top 10 things that made us go,
wow.
Indeed. So,
should we rub it in a little bit that we're coming from Hollywood where it's not 50 below zero?
Right, there's no polar vortex.
This is the time of year that I like to call people back east I haven't talked to for years and just be like, what's going on?
Well, over Christmas, you guys both weren't here, but it reached 80 degrees here. It was beautiful.
It's a little chilly today.
It's good to live in
overcast.
Anyway, I just wanted to rub that in the faces.
By the time this goes on, the bomb cyclone will have hit New York City.
Polar vortex, yes.
It was a hurricane
the day
of ice,
after.
is what they say.
Yes, people are just going to freeze on the spot. So, okay, without further ado, what have we got at number 10, Tom?
Number 10.
Speaking of a storm that's brewing, I want to talk about Dave Chappelle. Oh. You know, I have to admit, when Dave Chappelle was really famous, it was his first time around, I knew who he was, and I watched the show, and I thought it was funny, but I don't know, I was out of it. I'm, not always on the cutting edge. This past weekend, there was a Dave Chappelle marathon of his old show on Comedy Central, which is amazing, and he's dropped several comedy specials on Netflix.
Right.
And each one is more controversial than the next. And without being dragged down by his controversy, I want to discuss it. Because it's just the idea of comedy and comedians having a certain responsibility, but their job. He said it brilliantly, I thought, at the beginning of his special. Well, one's in a big theater and one's like at the belly room of the Comedy Store, and it was shot in November and it's on the air. So I like the quick turnaround.
It's fresh.
Yes, but they're also saying, well, if he'd worked on it longer, then he would have had more context. It's like, shut up. So, and he says sometimes the funniest things to say is mean. It's a tough position to be in because I say a lot of mean things, but you got to remember, I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it to be funny. And he takes on like sexual harassment.
Can comedy be dangerous in this day and age?
I think it has to be.
Okay.
And I think people are allowed to have their reactions, and they should. And we should keep things on track. But we live, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, or we don't discuss every week. But we live in this black or white world. You're good, you're bad. You're a monster, you're not. And he's beginning with the sexual thing through humor to sort of say, yeah, Harvey Weinstein is a monster, and he says things about him. But he goes like Louis C.K. He goes, and he starts going off like, different measures.
Oh, this is exciting because that's like a trigger thing, right?
Well, what he said was, I guess I'll say this thing, was that he was masturbating on the phone to a woman, and she said that she had to leave comedy because of it. And he was like, girl, he was masturbating on a phone. You can hang up the phone. It's like if someone is masturbating and that stops you from your dream, then your dream isn't that big and strong.
Here we go down the rabbit hole.
Yes, right. Because any of this,
I'm not
absolutely. And I encourage people to watch it if they want to, because anything out of context definitely sounds mean. But he has this thing which I think is funny, and I'll probably be torn down and have to leave the country. But he says, this woman, he was just saying there's degrees of bad. He's not saying what Louis C.K. did was good or okay, but he was saying, this woman said she left show business. She left comedy because her dream was destroyed by this behavior of him masturbating on the phone. And he's like, geez. He goes, I wonder what Martin Luther King would have done with his dream. Just sort of bringing up, I thought in a very sly way, like there are communities in our culture that have been repressed and put down and rise up. And, it's not to say, and I think we're having this amazing moment where women are having, and we have no right to even talk about it, this amazing moment of this behavior is not okay. We're talking about it. It's great.
But what is so great is that Netflix is in there doing it. Like what other network in TV is touching this.
Well,
not with a 6-foot pole, no one.
But the con of that is that not about Netflix, but about how the fact that Dave Chappelle is doing this, and we're talking about it, and blah, blah, blah. But when Kathy Griffin did it, her career was over, and she lost all these bookings, and you aren't seeing that with a man, and it's sort of that male privilege thing where he's able to tackle the subject, whereas Kathy Griffin was not allowed to tackle it.
But that's real, and you can't just shut things down because they're not fair. You have to kind of process them, and he does process stuff. I think he's smart, and he does take you through things.
And he is getting shit for this.
And it is a work in progress. I think it's funny.
How many specials are there?
I think there's 4 altogether. I saw 2. One's called Equanimity, and one's called The Bird Revelation. I'm not quite sure what that means.
But it's like interesting because he was this wunderkind of comedy, right?
Yes.
And he kind of sort of spontaneously combusted.
Well, he backed away from it.
And he's been gone all this time.
And his tentative re-entry is sometimes is met with some. He had a special that didn't do very well, and then this one is getting a lot of controversy. But he still doesn't take away anything from who he is.
The last thing I'll say, because I do think he again take a little piece, but the whole thing. He says at one point to the women kind of out there, goes, "You've got all the bad guys scared, and that's good." He goes, "But the minute they're not scared anymore, it will get worse than it was before. Fear does not make lasting peace." I just think that's insightful. That it's fear, and we're in this. We're on the front line of this one. The war is going on. People are angry. They're strident. They should be.
I think you could apply that also, though, outside of sexual harassment. Fear does not make lasting peace. Fear.
I think that's insightful.
We're living in a sort of fear-driven age, and that's the kind of government we're under, is where it's people are driven by fear.
But there's more to be revealed, and more the movement to mature. Anyway. Dave Chappelle was on my mind a lot this week.
Currently streaming on Netflix. Okay, James, what do you got? Number 9.
Number 9.
I went to go see The Post over the weekend. Have either of you seen this?
No, I want to so bad.
Okay, it's Steven Spielberg, it's Meryl Streep, it's Tom Hanks.
And a lot of stairs in the poster.
Yes, it's interesting because Meryl Streep plays Katharine Graham, who is one of the most fascinating women of the 20th century. Absolutely, a really interesting woman. She has this whole backstory that's only hinted at in the movie, and she was the first CEO of a Fortune 500 company, first female CEO of a Fortune 500 company. She was the publisher of the Washington Post during the time of Watergate, and this is you'd think that would be the story. You'd think that if you got Ben Bradley and you got Katharine Graham, you've got the Washington Post, 1971.
I thought it was just another way to do Watergate.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with Watergate. This is about the Pentagon Papers, which was this little known, I guess, I didn't know about it. I was too young. But it was...
surely not.
Tom might remember this.
I was there, James.
Lillian Gish and I were riding the trolley car when we heard...
you just in your crib.
Yeah.
In your
Pentagon
diapers.
Papers was when the New York Times got a hold of some secret documents that said for 30 years the government had been lying about winning the Vietnam War, that it wasn't winnable, that they knew it, and they kept sending boys in to die.
It was, by today's standards, a WikiLeaks, if you will.
Yes. Okay. Exactly.
Right.
And it's and then the Nixon administration shuts down the New York Times, and the Washington Post acquires the papers, and they run with it, and they take it to the Supreme Court, and they win, and it's a giant victory for the freedom of the press. Blah blah blah. And there's all sorts of analogies to what's going on with the Trump administration. Blah blah blah.
And they put everything on the line. She put her family-owned paper on the line, her reputation. She could have gone to jail. It's real stakes, right?
Exactly. And to Spielberg's credit, he wrings a lot of emotion out of this sort of convoluted,
It's dry. Yes.
this government story. And it's all fascinating. And Meryl Streep is just wonderful, and she deserves an Oscar nomination, of course. I hate Tom Hanks. I've always hated Tom Hanks. I think he's a terrible
Tom, if you're
person.
listening, Tom and I love you.
And he plays this like he's Perry White in a Superman. He's just plays a gruff newspaper editor-in-chief, and it's just so like a Saturday Night Live skit, and it's terrible. It's just it's the worst. Anyway, but the fascinating
only the most beloved man in America.
I'm just being a contrarian.
I like that about you.
But the thing about I wanted to talk about a little bit about Katharine Graham because this backstory of hers is so fascinating. her mother was a very famous socialite who was friends with Eleanor Roosevelt and Rodin and Marie Curie and she grew up with all these fascinating people in the house. And her father was who started the Washington Post, and he gave it to her husband when he died. And instead of giving it to his daughter, he gave it to the daughter's husband because a woman couldn't run a newspaper, and that's just the way the times were. And the husband was an alcoholic and abusive and beat her, and he was terrible. And then he committed suicide, and that's how she came to run the Washington Post. And this happened in 1964, and it coincided, interestingly enough, with Truman Capote's rise when he did In Cold Blood. And when he did In Cold Blood, to celebrate, he threw this party, the Black and White Ball, which is the biggest party that has ever been in the history of the world. And it was old Hollywood, it was high society, it was royalty, it was journalism,
Andy Warhol went.
Andy Warhol,
Sinatra, Mia Farrow,
Gloria
Vanderbilt,
and Gloria
Swanson,
yes, all Gloria's with it. So anyway, and the person he chose to be the guest of honor was Katharine Graham. It was for Katharine Graham.
I had no idea.
Everybody from every part of the world came to kiss Katharine Graham's ass, and she became de facto the big get of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She was like Jackie O, Brooke Astor. She was like, this thrust her into a spotlight. And Meryl Streep plays this very slyly, because every time it goes to her house, she's always having this fabulous party, and she's always in a caftan, and she's always in like a fabulous jewels and a little wrap dress or something like that. And she's always like, there's these great scenes where she's having a party and her political enemies are at the party, and she's like, darling, I love you, darling. Our kids grew up together. I'm taking you down, and I hope you don't mind. They're like, darling, we've been together for 20 years. We've been friends, and this won't ruin our friendship. But by God, I'm going to fight you on this. And they have all these wonderful back and forth, and it's all very like adult and very like sophisticated. But you'd think that might be the story of the Katharine Graham story.
That's not the story.
No. It's just very quickly alluded to that, like their husband killing himself, the father, blah, blah, blah. And so I think there's other Katharine Graham stories. And at the very end, spoiler alert, they just say, she says, oh, I hope we never have to go through anything like that again. And the audience laughs hysterically because you know that Watergate is
Watergate
around the corner. So you have like this wonderful character in Katharine Graham, and they sort of like don't do a disservice to it by muddling it with this whole story.
They don't do a disservice to it.
No, but
you're saying it's good, right?
It's a good movie, but there's so much more to Katharine Graham. I wish they would have.
Is there a sequel, do you think?
Well, a prequel and a sequel and an equal.
There's a Netflix series like The Crown.
Yes.
Anyway, and they turned this movie around quickly, just like the Dave Chappelle special. They shot it, I think, this summer, and it's out now. Like, it's
because I thought he'd been working on it for a long, long time. I thought it was like a passion thing of his.
Well, it's interesting, like I said, because there's a lot of they do beat you over the head with it. This is like the Trump administration and the government trying to shut down freedom of the press and all that stuff. So I do think it is rather recent in that respect.
I thought when I heard the title it was about a postman. How interesting is that going to be?
A post-apocalyptic postman played by Meryl Streep.
That's what I thought. It was going to be that. Who's that? Kevin Costner, the female version.
Return to sender.
All right, so number 8.
Number 8.
My hot flick pick is The Greatest Showman. Oh. I was kind of surprised. So Hugh Jackman plays...
Wait a minute. I just want to say that I'm sorry.
No, it's all yours, James. Yeah.
No. I was really not looking forward to this, but everybody upstairs in the World of Wonder says that I have to see it.
The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. No, I wasn't looking forward to it. I mean, I saw the trailer. I was like, who wants to go see a film about a circus? Because there's something about circuses that doesn't feel now.
No,
it feels very sort of
aesthetic
dated, and it's a little bit... politically wrong
and every
too.
Pop diva has their circus video, like Britney Spears. I'll do. It's
well,
like,
she
don't
owned
do it.
the circus.
Okay, never mind.
She owned the circus. So, anywho, Hugh Jackman plays P.T. Barnum,
and I'm not really wild about Hugh Jackman.
And you know what? It's a traditional. He's good. It's a traditional Hollywood story. You know, guy from the wrong side of the track has a dream, dreams big, gets the girl of his dreams. Invents the circus.
This is P.T. Barnum in the 19th century, right?
Yes, homoerotic tension with Zac Efron. You know, the American story.
That's very interesting because here's the thing. The movie is based on fact to a certain degree in that, yes, he did invent the circus and yes, his circus did burn down. And then a very interesting side plot with the Swedish Nightingale, a woman called Jenny Lind.
Oh, yeah.
Who he didn't even hear her sing. He hadn't heard her sing when he offered her an unbelievable deal to come to the States and tour.
Wait, did
and
he
it was
marry
a
her?
huge
No.
risk. Well, in the movie, the whole thing's played up that he sort of has an affair with her.
Is that Zendaya?
In reality, no.
Okay.
Someone else who I can't remember.
That's okay.
In reality, he doesn't. In truth, he doesn't. But it plays very well in the movie that, he has this...
I'm thinking of the great
this diva.
Ziegfeld. Sorry.
Because the thing is, he's trying to win respectability. P.T. Barnum was always seen as a huckster and a hustler. And actually, frankly, he admitted it himself that he was, that he was foisting the public with these fake things. But anyway, I thought it was it's visually stunning. Absolutely stunning. It's like, in a way that La La Land tried to be great and was just a bit... This is truly slow.
Is it Baz Luhrmann-esque?
There's very Baz Luhrmann-esque, but even slicker than Baz Luhrmann. Baz Luhrmann can sometimes feel like a tsunami-like assault.
Yes.
This is not that. I would say if you cross La La Land with Moulin Rouge, you get this beautiful-looking,
Quote for the poster.
visually stunning... routines.
But how did
And here's the thing, though. Zac Efron, his character, his partner, supposed partner, completely made-up character. And his interracial affair with Zendaya, completely made-up story.
Okay.
And then here's the problem, right?
Okay.
Now the problem.
Audiences are loving the movie. Critics hated
Yes.
it. Because the P.T. Barnum story is not...
P.T. Barnum is a racist and a horrible
Thank you.
homophobe and all of those things.
Well, right.
Yeah. And the idea of, one of the problematic aspects of the circus is the freak show and exploiting people and, taking all that. So how do they deal with that and what is that?
Well, in the movie, it's presented as... flying your freak flag, that P.T. Barnum, this brilliant, energetic,
Some
hear
might
me
call
out,
it a freak show.
Comes along, freak show. He comes along and he embraces them and they form this odd duck family. And it's like, fly your freak flag, be who you are. We all here at World of Wonder know this theme.
We do, and we live it.
But applying 21st century ideals to the 19th century,
yes, you can't do it.
cannot
Every
do it.
movie does.
But you can't. But there was no flying your freak flag in a big family and all that
That's
stuff
right.
at the time because they were all in cages.
Exactly. In fact, this is not in the movie, but when he was 25, he began his career as a showman when he purchased a slave woman, Joyce Heth.
There you go.
And
See?
he said that she was George Washington's former nurse and was 161 years old. I didn't know this story, and I shouldn't. It's unbelievable because even though slavery was outlawed at the time, he managed to get around that, and he bought her, and then... when she died, about a year later, he hosted a live autopsy of her body.
Yeah.
And people paid 50 cents. I mean, it was a little bit jaw-dropping. So that is not in the movie. This is not that movie.
Right.
But I mean, they did keep like the Chang and Ang, like weren't they in it?
They keep the conjoined twins, and they have the bearded woman, and they have Tom Thumb, of course.
But they were all treated like as slave labor.
Well, in this movie, not.
Okay.
In this movie, it's a family thing, and when he hits bankruptcy and fails, they all come together. And I mean, I can see critics having a problem with it because it doesn't adhere to the truth of the story. But this is no question a feel-good movie and maybe an idealized version of what it should have been like, Yeah. Peter, came out in protest, said it was horrible exploitation.
But is Zach hot?
So, yeah, he is.
Is Hugh hot?
Yeah, it's really...
We're in.
I'll go. I can't wait.
Okay, so The Greatest Showman is currently playing nationwide. And by the way, the audiences are loving it. And it's so rare for a movie to do better than its opening weekend.
Yeah, the
But
second
it's
weekend
great.
was bigger.
It was 8 million, then it's 14 million, then it's 20 million. So it's on a roller coaster ride.
right.
So
We do sort of seem to be having a dearth of really fabulous movies this season, though, this Oscar season.
I don't think so.
You
I
don't?
think there's some good ones. Okay, so here's the question, right? Because we've got to take a quick break. Either, when did Barnum begin the circus, P.T. Barnum begin the circus, or when did it end? You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM. We'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report, our countdown of the top 10 things that made us go wow this week. So I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, here with Tom Campbell. You can say something.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, you
I guess we're on
are.
radio. I should say something, shouldn't I?
Pantomime does not work on radio.
And the sensational James St. James and Blake Edwards.
Happy New
Blake
Year,
Edwards.
Blake Edwards.
Blake Edwards. We have a distinguished guest from the dead.
Thank you for the Pink
from the grave.
Panther.
Said we need more celebrities on the show. So Blake, you're now Blake Edwards.
Zombie Blake Edwards.
Big celebrities in 2018. I like it.
So the question was either when did the circus begin, P.T. Barnum's circus, or when did it end?
1889 and 2015.
I'm going to go with that.
You're both wrong.
I think it ended in 2016. I have no idea when it started.
Oh, you're wrong too. It ended last year, in May of last year, 2017.
2017.
Oh, 2017.
Yeah.
Oh.
And by the way, the elephants in the movie, because, you know, it ended partly because of the campaign against the elephants and the cruelty to the elephants. The elephants in the movie are CGI.
There you go.
Yes, yes.
But when did it start?
Oh, okay. It began in 1871.
Close enough.
So you're pretty close.
Close
Yeah.
enough.
But he didn't invent the circus, by the way. That was invented in...
The Ringling Brothers.
No, it was in, the first American circus was, who cares really, 1825.
Oh.
And before that, it was the French.
I was going to say, I thought it was a French thing back in the 1700s.
The Amphitheatre Anglois.
It's before my time, so I don't know.
All right. Okay, so we're counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. And we're at number 7.
Number 7.
Well, James blurted out that there are not that many good movies, and I might disagree with that, but when you see a great movie, you're reminded of the difference. And over the holidays with my brother and sister back in New Hampshire, I made them turn on Turner Classic Movies, which I can't imagine that everybody doesn't have like as one of their top 3.
Literally, that's all I did over the week. Or it just was Turner Classic Movies.
And my brother put on the movie channel. I'm like, no, TMC is not TCM. And I got to watch from the beginning to the end Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, which I forgot. I've seen it once before. It was restored and released like in the early 80s when I was in college, and I went to like the Brattle Theater in Harvard Square and saw it and was blown away then. But, you know, you see a lot of Hitchcock stuff on TV, and sometimes it's a little slowly paced. You know, it shows its age.
Rope does not age well.
Right.
Even Vertigo. Yeah.
I see it.
Even Vertigo, sometimes it's like...
I'm not a big Vertigo
it's
fan.
That different thing, like, you know, the car pulls up. He gets out. He walks to the door. He knocks on the door. She opens it. You know, it's like this old way of telling stories. Rear Window is exquisite. It stars, for those who don't remember, Jimmy Stewart as like a war veteran who's...
Is he in a wheelchair?
He broke his leg, and he's a photographer. He broke his leg like in a race thing. And so he's stuck in a wheelchair. His girlfriend is like, she's like a Vogue editor or something, Grace Kelly, who's so beautiful. And she's so snitty and blah, blah, and he's all-American. Together, they're fantastic.
But how could they ever... these two people would never... I don't know.
Why not?
3 little letters, SEX, sex, baby.
He is sexy, I guess.
Both of them.
Yeah.
And she keeps coming
She's
in.
frosty. She's a brittle bitch. She is.
And Thelma Ritter.
She's an ice princess.
And Thelma Ritter plays the insurance nurse who has to come and like give him massages and stuff.
I love Thelma
The whole
Ritter.
thing is built on a set, but it's supposed to be Greenwich Village, and he witnesses a murder. And
he has nothing to do, so he sits at home all day with a pair of binoculars, looking across the way, across the alleyway at the building, at everybody who's there. And there's a whole cast of characters across the way.
There are 6 stories going on through windows, all pantomimed. And it's
There's
so
a dancer who's flitting around. She's a ballerina.
There's Miss Lonely Heart.
There's a couple, like an Italian couple, who are arguing the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's Raymond Burr.
A young Raymond Burr who's playing an old man.
Not in a wheelchair.
No, he's like 20 years old. Yeah, he was later Ironside, right?
With white hair.
But he's like 25 years old, and they draw wrinkles on him and put white hair on him, and it's very disconcerting to me.
But it's all about this fight with voyeurism. It's today still it's such a prevalent theme because it's like, what are you doing? Why are you looking? You're obsessed. Why are you doing this? And he's and
it's dirty. It's filthy.
It's dirty. It's filthy. And yet all we want as the viewers is go back back to the window, go
Right,
back,
right.
and you do, and then the climax. Not to spoil alert, but it's like Miss Lonely Heart, this single woman who goes out on dates and is roughed up back at her apartment. She takes a whole bunch of pills, and you sort of see her start to kill herself as he sends Lisa, Grace Kelly, over to like peek in the guy's apartment looking for a witness of his dead wife. And we lose track of one story to pay attention to the other story.
I forgot about Miss Lonely Heart dying. Does she die?
She doesn't, but like you don't know what's happening, and
Right.
and then Lisa gets arrested, and the guy's on to him, and it's so good. It's so fulfilling. And there was it was a whole Alfred Hitchcock thing. They had like Dial M for Murder, and Grace Kelly's great, but like that was all very continental, and everyone's talking like this. And there's something about Rear Window that's so American.
Well, it's,
and
voyeurism is like
it's what we're doing today
it's
online.
what we
right?
mainline. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the great Hollywood classics, and if you aren't into Hollywood classics, it's a good gateway to get you into the golden age of Hollywood.
Not
because
old. It's not musty.
No,
it's
it's Grace
so
Kelly
good.
at her absolute most beautiful in these 50s gowns, these Dior new look that is just absolutely fantastic.
Her overnight bag is the best. As a mirror and a nightgown and slippers.
It is a fashion movie for fashionistas. Jimmy Stewart is really just so handsome.
Yeah.
He really is.
All American.
Thelma Ritter is one of those character actresses that you've seen a million times and in a million places.
Yep.
It's a great movie.
I don't want to cut you off, James, but we really got to move on to your number 6.
Number 6.
First of all, I saw 2 documentaries on Netflix, and the first one was called Bitcoins. And I just wanted to throw this out there very quickly, because after the fluctuation in the market in December for Bitcoins, I don't know if you guys...
it was up and down.
It was up and down. It was
Trying
like
to pay attention,
13,000.
it's hard.
No.
Explain.
No, it's a documentary about the origin of Bitcoins and the legal ramifications of Bitcoins.
Time.
What? No, hold on, God, you guys. I just wanted to say, watch this, because there's a lot of long-term, and we can talk about it some other times. But the other documentary that I saw was called Voyeur. Okay, but no, I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw 2 documentaries, and they were both really good, and one of them was really important. But I wanted to
a show next week.
Oh, for God's sake!
Yeah, no, let's talk about Bitcoin next week for sure.
So should we start over
No,
again?
let's keep going.
Well, now I've lost all my time. Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time.
Let's like number 7.
James at that was number 6.5, and now at number 6.
Number 6, I saw a documentary on Netflix called Voyeur, and it's absolutely fascinating. And as you were talking about how everybody really is a voyeur at heart, this is a documentary ostensibly about a hotel owner who builds a secret crawl space in the hotel, and for 25, 30 years is crawling through the crawl space, watching his guests and watching them masturbate and have sex and oral sex, and crimes being committed. There's a murder that he never reports. Drug deals are going down in his hotel, and he's watching the whole time, taking notes. Okay,
so to protect his ability to watch, he doesn't report the murders or anything.
No, yeah, exactly, because he's
and
just
so
a watcher.
A whole ethical, moral dilemma.
Well, but hold on a second, because just as The Wizard of Oz is not really about the wizard, it's about Dorothy and her journey, this is about Gay Talese, the reporter who does the story, who writes the book about this man. And Gay Talese, it helps to know, that is one of the most important journalists of the 20th century. He wrote
Frank
for
Sinatra has a cold.
Esquire magazine, New Yorker, New York Times. He's one of the great literary lions of New York City. His wife Nan is a big muckety muck too, and he's one of the best dressed, perennially best dressed men on the planet.
Son of a tailor, did you know?
Son of a tailor, yes. And he's very well dressed, and he very early on in 1980, this guy writes to him and says, "Do I have a story for you? This is what I've been up to since the 1960s." And he realizes right away, this is a story. This is something big. And he sort of engages him and befriends him, and they start this pen pal relationship that goes for 10, 15 years, where the guy keeps writing to him saying, "Today I saw a man masturbate in the window," blah blah blah, like that. And it opens up this moral, ethical, like, quandary of is he, if you know that a crime is being committed and you don't do anything, can journalists really remove themselves from the story? Is it like a priest or a doctor, or do you have some sort of ethical? Are you aiding and abetting?
Right.
And what Gay Talese does is the guy sells the hotel in the 1990s, and then they wait 10 years before the statute of limitation runs out before Gay writes the book about this, which another big red flag, like, what are you doing, Gay? This seems a little wrong. wrong.
But on the other hand, the murder.
Well, no, but just the idea that this guy has been for 30 years has been entering these people's lives unlawfully and watching them, and somebody knows about it, and this person is. Gate very early on says, journalists are all voyeurs. What we want to do is just get into people's lives and learn everything about them. I understand it. I understand. You understand. Like sometimes when people say, "What superpower do you want?" You say you want to be invisible. You want to watch people. You want to go around. You want to sneak into your ex-boyfriends and see what he's up to. It's a thing we all want to do.
Voyeurism is fundamental. So is voyeurism a crime, really?
Well, yeah, and as things start to unravel, well, first of all, it's interesting that he and Gay have this sort of weird, sort of fun back and forth relationship, and they get into the little spats about things every once in a while.
They're like an old bickering couple.
They're like an old bickering couple, and you sort of see that over the time that the voyeur is the least creepy person in the story to me because Gay Talese is breaking all these journalistic ethical rules right and left, and at one point he disavows the book because he learned some information.
Well, right, there was a whole. The hotel owner had sold the hotel in 1980 and rebought it in 1988. And so for 8 years of the period of the story, he didn't own the motel. Why on earth that is remotely relevant?
Well, because
I don't understand. But Gay Talese, on learning it and learning that he didn't know it, disavowed the book and said the credibility of the book was in the toilet.
Well, because the guy kept it from 80 to 88. He was still writing all these stories about what he was watching. But it turns out that the guy who bought the hotel gave him access to the crawl space.
So what's the difference?
Well, but that right there is that guy is weird. The guy is married to these two different women.
They bring sandwiches.
They bring sandwiches to him while he's masturbating in the crawl space. They leave little cups of tea for him because they know he's thirsty. The women are really creepy.
Who's going to make this movie?
I know, right? Because it's a good documentary, but it's somewhat. You'd think that the murder would be the central focal point.
No.
But it actually isn't. And I feel that the moral dilemma, funnily enough, around the book, A, it doesn't really get resolved, and B, it's not that interesting. It's not as interesting as what do you do as an observer, as a ghost, a real-life ghost. I just, from a movie point of view, I think that's where...
But you have these great characters, and you have a really interesting scene, which you and I can relate to, because there's a scene where they're talking about, the voyeur has this... baseball card collection. And it's worth a lot of money, he says. This card is worth $10 million. This card is worth $20 million. And Gay puts that in the book, and the guy freaks out. He's like, I can't believe you dishonored me. I told you not to put it in there. You put it in there, and you did it. And it's like that thing where all this other criminal stuff is going on, and that's what he's focused on. And there have been times with us where I'm like, my ascot tie was tied all wrong, and you can't put that scene in the movie. You can't put that in the documentary. Where it's like you focus on these little tiny things, and the bigger picture is so much more interesting, but he keeps focusing on all the wrong things. He's gonna, he could be indicted for all this stuff, and he's worried about the baseball card collection. It's also really cute, and this is where how Gay is always all dressed up, and this guy is a real slob, but every time they meet, he puts on a little tie, and he tries to look and he tries to smarten himself up for Gay. It's sort of cute the way they sort of interact together.
I thought it was really interesting. Voyeur is currently streaming on Netflix.
Number 5.
This is the Netflix show,
We need to get out more in 2018.
They made a movie. They made a big fuck-off Hollywood movie. $90 million movie with Will Smith called... Tell us how you really feel. Called Bright. And
Joel Edgerton.
Whenever critics pan something, I'm like, this must be good.
I can't wait.
I can't wait. It really drew me in because the critical reviews were horrendous. Savage. But you know what? It's really interesting. And it's Will Smith plays a cop, a sort of tired, world-weary cop. It's directed by David Ayer, who wrote Training Day. So it's that sort of noir, gritty, cop, corrupt drama thing. And Will Smith is this sort of aging cop. And in this world, in this dystopian world, I mean, it's like LA now, it's LA today, but there are orcs and elves and fairies. And it's as if just the magic world just they don't explain how it came about.
It's just there.
It's just there, exactly. And fairies are the annoying little fuckers who eat seed out of the bird feeder and have to be killed. But they're like sort of 6 inches high and they fly around. And the movie begins with Will Smith beating a fairy to death because his wife is like, kill that fairy. The fairy's back in the bird feeder.
So it's like squirrels or pigeons, which people hate in their feeder, but they love a cardinal.
Yes, it's so icky. And then his buddy, or actually not buddy, his partner is an orc because the police force is trying to integrate.
And what's an orc like?
An orc is like an ogre.
Okay.
And
It's the blue Joel Edgerton, right?
Yes. I can't really recognize him, Joel Edgerton, yes. And they have tusky type things.
Okay.
But he sawed his down so he could be a cop. And he's always wanted to be a cop, and the LAPD wouldn't let orcs in, but now they're letting them in. And the elves are very, very rich, and they spend all their time running things and shopping. So it's sort of a social commentary using these tropes from fairy tales
Right.
and repurposing them. I mean, and then what's driving the movie is the fact that, I mean, it's an unbelievably shit-filled world. I mean, just like dystopian and horrid. But what's driving the movie is that along comes a wand, and the master of evil is planning a return, and that magic is making a comeback. And they've got to stop this wand falling into the wrong hands. And from there, it devolves into sort of ultra-violent, unbelievable language. I mean, Netflix can do it. They have no restrictions, no limitations. A sort of orgy, which I don't think is actually that great. But the premise is so interesting, and it's really, because obviously it's looking at racism, it's looking at police brutality. Privilege. I mean, the elves, yes. And one critic, actually, I love this. I mean, because one critic, Charles Muded, or anyway, he writes for The Stranger, and he said that he makes these great puns, orcs in the hood. Or lifestyles of the rich and elvish.
Nice.
Or everybody wants to wand the world. But his larger, more serious point is that critics are foolish to believe, I'm quoting, that they have the critical tools to make meaningful judgments about a movie as confounding as Bright. They don't. I don't. And it's true. It's really something very different.
But if the movie is so confounding that it defies critical analysis, does that make it a good movie, or does that make it just confounding?
Interesting, confounding.
I think you're more open-minded.
I mean, I think Mother was confounding.
Now,
but an awful
the
movie.
New York Times says that the result is loud, ungainly hybrid that does not serve police procedurals or fantasy spectaculars very well. It says that it tries to marry the two and it doesn't pull it off.
Yeah.
It's interestingly,
at least it tries to do something different.
Well, you make me want to watch it now. I didn't want to watch it before.
You do make a compelling case.
Yeah. It was written
or at least
by Max.
half of it.
It was written by Max Landis. I don't know if you know Max.
No, I do
He
not
is
know Max.
John Landis'
John
son?
Landis' son.
Oh, okay.
He is sort of a Hollywood brat. He has a very interesting Twitter feed where he's sort of like a reality show villain, and he does things to piss people off all the time. I know him, and he's really an interesting boy. I like him. He's had some controversy and some scandals and stuff, and he's written a lot of stuff that people hate. They just despise.
I thought this was really interesting.
In case Will Smith is still listening, can I pitch out a movie idea for him?
Yes, because he's so
He should do a maybe fictionalized version of the Bill Cosby story.
That is a great idea.
It's interesting when you say that.
That really is.
When you say
right?
that Will Smith plays an aging cop, that's so discognizant or whatever to me. Because to me he's the Fresh Prince, and I can't imagine him as an old man.
He
it's
still
very
looks
strange.
gorgeous. I mean, he's not that old. He's still studly. I'd do him. Okay, we have to take a quick break. Bright is streaming on Netflix. So here's our question. Yeah. Since this does seem to be the Netflix episode for a change, right? What is the biggest streaming day of the year for Netflix? This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report, our countdown of the top 10 things that made us go wow. This week, I'm Fenton Bailey. I'm here with Tom Campbell, James St. James.
Was it supposed to say something that time? Hello?
No, you're not.
See, I don't know.
This is the abbreviated intro.
Okay, good.
Okay. And Blake.
Hi.
Blake Jacobs, not Blake Edwards.
Yeah, that's me.
They're both here.
Blake Lively.
Before the break, the question
Lively
was... the question was, what is the most popular streaming day for Netflix? And I don't know the answer to this.
I'm going to say the day after Thanksgiving.
I'm going to say the day after Christmas or the day after New Year's Eve. I'm going to say New Year's Day. I'm going to say New Year's Day.
Well,
That's the con.
I just liked it every day. It was
No. I mean, it's obviously one of those days where everyone's sitting around.
January 1, I'm saying Friday after Thanksgiving. You're going to say?
December 26th.
Yeah, there we go. Uh-huh.
Okay.
After
Just like after Christmas. Boxing Day, as we say in the old country.
January 1st.
I'm sorry. That was sort of a mean-spirited.
I don't want to play anymore.
Jeez. James, you win absolutely nothing.
Oh.
What about number 4?
Number 4.
I got to go to New York, to Broadway, to see a handful of shows. I want to talk about Meteor Shower, but before I do, I just want to say that From This Island.
Once on This Island.
Once on This Island.
It's a bad title.
It's an amazing, bad title, amazing musical. You should see it. It was a big 90 years ago. And it's back. I also saw Noah Galvin from The Real O'Neills, who replaced Ben Platt in Dear Evan Hansen.
Does he do good?
He does amazing. It's almost it's a thankless job because it is a definitive role. It's like Barbra Streisand and Funny Girl, Ben Platt and Dear Evan Hansen, but Noah Galvin is so talented, can sing, can act, and I can't wait until he has his own Broadway show. But he if you haven't seen it, has not lost any of its luster.
And he nails the big number that was the defining number of the show.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's amazing. But Meteor Shower is the one I want to talk about. You saw Meteor Shower too.
Yes, I did.
It's written by Steve Martin. It's kind of this adult drawing room comedy set like 20 years ago, so there's no internet. And it stars Amy Schumer, Keegan Michael Key from Key and Peele, and this is their Broadway debuts, and they're hilarious. And then some Broadway kind of veterans, Laura Benantes, is how you say it, and Jeremy Seamus. And it's set in Ojai. And it's like in a living room, and Amy
very LA,
is married to this guy Jeremy, and they're very LA, and they're trying to like, and they're very like into like each other's feelings, and they stop fights before they happen, something we should work on, and talk about how they're really feeling, and they're visited by this couple that they only know peripherally, and again it's set 20 years ago, so you can't Google them, and this couple comes on a night of meteor showers, that's the title, and sort of destroys their marriage.
Right. Oh, so it's like whatever happened. I mean, it's like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but updated.
Yeah.
Slightly Pinterest, the way sinister, malicious, malevolent figures come into people's lives.
Okay.
And it has this. It made me laugh, and you had like a deeper relationship with it. I want to hear about it, but it does. It starts and stops. It kind of has that noises off kind of thing where it's like they do it once, and then you have insight, then they do it again, and they switch things up, and then they do it a third time, and you're in on it short term and long term. You know, the jokes really land. Amy Schumer is a Broadway star. She really can pull it off, which is
great.
amazing.
I thought it was absolutely fucking amazing.
Why?
And the first sort of trigger, I mean, I love the comedy between them. I honor your feelings and all that. That was very funny. The first trigger, though, was when they have a basket on the coffee table of 3 eggplants that their guests have sent over in advance. Like, 3 eggplants? What is that? And I'm like, what's with the eggplants? Anyway, it's somewhat a spoiler, but I can't really talk about it without revealing, which is that the couple who come over to ruin their lives are their subconscious. And so it's this sort of, they come in and the paranoia that exists in any relationship, the sort of, oh, he doesn't love me anymore, or all those sort of
real?
jealous thoughts. Oh, they're real in the play, but they are speaking out, they're acting out what the subconscious is thinking. And so these destructive forces come upon this relationship. There's a great line in it where they realize what's happening and they say to each other, you know, when Velcro, you know, when we got together, it was like Velcro, you know, sticking together. And then they said, and you know, when it gets bad between you, it's like, and she said, yes, we break up. She said, no, it sticks you even more together. And with that sort of resolve to ride through the good times and the bad times, they go back out into the room and destroy the subconscious couple who've come in to destroy them. And it
is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. But it's really good. It's really good. And the great thing is there's no interval, which is great. Intermission, yes, because you just like go there and sit through it and leaves. It's short. Actually. It's like 80, 90 minutes. It's absolutely fantastic. So that is...
And you took Nolan.
Yes, which wasn't entirely appropriate because there's a lot of very explicit
An
talk
11-year-old who now understands the complexity of a long-term relationship.
and the whole idea of subconscious. And things.
That boy.
What do we got at number 3?
Number 3.
I finally got a chance to watch Big Mouth. I don't know if you guys have heard about this.
Because of you, I have watched.
Don't tell me it's on
My God.
Netflix.
It's on Netflix, yes. But it's been getting a lot of press, and people are really... I guess it came out in October, November of last year. And it is... IMDb says it's about teenage friends find their lives upended by the horror of puberty. And it is graphic beyond graphic. It is funny.
It is.
It stars and is written by Nick Kroll and John Mulaney, right? Who are really,
Geniuses.
really funny guys. It also stars Fred Armisen and Maya Rudolph is the puberty monsters.
Yes.
And they sort of come up behind the kids and they're always like saying, go touch the boob.
Right. And it's all animated, just
it's all
underline that.
animated.
This is their voices.
Go into the closet and masturbate. Hurry, you just saw a nipple. Like that type of thing.
Sounds a bit like Meteor Shower.
Jordan Peele is also in it. Jenny Slate, Andrew Rannells, Kat Dennings, Chelsea Perotti, Kristen Bell. It has a stellar cast.
Yes.
It is unbelievable. The writing is really crisp and funny. I wanted to, a couple of the episodes, where was this?
But I've never been a big Simpsons fan.
Right.
And this scratched my sweet spot because it's hilarious. And it is about, they're in 7th grade. It's about puberty. It's sex in a really frank way. It kind of has moral lessons. They're not after school specials, but it actually does. I would tell Nolan maybe sooner than later to watch the show.
It is graphic and they swear and there's lots of talk about penises and there's one episode where the girl goes to a part or goes on a school play thing or school date thing and she has her first period. There's the 2 boys. One of them goes through puberty first and he has this big huge dong with this big and hairy and he sees it in the gym and the other guy says he has a little schmeckle and it doesn't do anything and like the whole thing is just like penis talk and vagina talk and this. But it's kids, and you can imagine this is what kids really talk like.
And it's also not sexy. You know what I mean? It's not like you're watching. It's not exploitive.
But there is an episode where he discovers online porn, and he becomes this porn addict at 11 years old. But
I feel like important lessons for adolescents to know.
Adolescents, but not children, right?
Not children, but I mean, I'm saying Nolan's getting there.
Yeah, maybe another year.
Yeah, well, he saw Meteor Shower, so it's too late.
Or Sausage Party.
He saw Sausage Party, and he saw Akhenaten. I mean,
Alien.
I go back and again, it's weird because I don't have kids and I'm coming from a middle-aged man's mind, but it's like, geez, I wish there was that kind of frank conversation about things that I wasn't going through it all alone.
There's one episode, remember, where he sees The Rock in a movie and he thinks that he's gay, and like he goes through this whole thing, like he thinks, well, and it's very modern, and he's like, well, if I'm gay, then what, maybe I should start learning about gay culture, and he goes and watches gay porn, and then he's like, I don't know, maybe I'm not so gay after all. But it's but it's stuff that like you can imagine, like 12-year-olds doing, and it just feels very modern, and it's.
Can I just tell you a terrible dark secret? I don't know why I want to share it. But when I went through puberty kind of young, and I had pubic hair in my pubic region, and I shaved it because I was horrified.
Well,
I had to make
shave
it
you, which is
stop.
very avant-garde.
I didn't know. I thought something terrible was happening to me, and I had somehow caused it, and then I needed to make it go away.
That's so funny because I was the exact opposite. I was very late, and I was mortified.
You were sticking merkins on.
Yeah, I was gluing wigs. I had little hair pieces putting under my arms. I had a fall.
I would have sent you my clippings had I known.
Great.
Oh, that's what everybody wanted to know.
I am not going to share anything.
And on that note,
in front of you guys.
moving right along.
Big Mouth is streaming on Netflix, although it's a cartoon, it's not suitable for children. Okay.
Number 2.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Bob.
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he. Okay, yes, if nautical nonsense be something you wish, then drop on the deck and flop like a fish. Yes, I went to see the SpongeBob SquarePants musical.
So excited to hear about this.
Drum roll.
It was really good.
That's
what was so good about it was that there are 2 shows that I have seen every single episode of. Night before bed, it's the Golden Girls. in the morning at breakfast is SpongeBob SquarePants. I have seen every episode multiple times. And to imagine how they could take this incredibly anarchic, surreal, over-the-top cartoon and put it on the stage. That was like, how are they going to do it? And you know what? They do it brilliantly.
Hey, the stagecraft is amazing.
Stagecraft is amazing, yes.
Because they aren't really in square, like, cartoon. Isn't it like just actors being...
Exactly. This must be the first instance where a cartoon character like SpongeBob SquarePants, who isn't human, is played by a human who looks like a human. And the kid who plays him, Ethan Slater, is really good.
This is his moment, right?
So it's not representational.
I mean, he's like Joel Grey in Cabaret. This kid is SpongeBob. Yeah.
It's just fascinating because I don't understand how they. I want to know a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what it looked like and how it was. Because people say that it's like an acid trip.
It's like an acid trip. They use multiple different modes and multiple different tropes and anything and everything. So it feels very chaotic. So, for example, Bikini Bottom. They live in Bikini Bottom, and SpongeBob lives under a pineapple. And the plot revolves around a volcano that is threatening to destroy the whole underwater city. And every now and then boulders pour down on the city, and they have this sort of Heath Robinson contraption off to the stage, and the whole thing's shaking, and the ball comes down. It's just a giant inflatable ball. It's like 10,000 visual jokes, all different kinds and gimmicks. For example, the sea kelp, they reproduce by just using pool noodles. Or the jellyfish are all just umbrellas, pink umbrellas. And so that also is making, it's not a cheap show, by the way, it costs $20 million to stage, but it's also making a point about refuse and discarding. And that was the great thing, is that the story of this musical is pretty incredible, because one of the key characters in SpongeBob SquarePants is a squirrel called Sandy who comes from Texas. So she's a land mammal living under the sea in a dome, right? In an oxygenated dome. And she's a scientist.
I don't know this cartoon.
And as the volcano is about to destroy the whole village, she says, science, we got to figure out how to stop it scientifically. Everyone else is running around joining a cult, following the starfish who's spectacularly stupid, or a politician is doing nothing, just saying, oh, we'll form a committee, or an old white man is running around saying, there must be someone to blame, and in fact leads a campaign against no land mammals under the sea. It's all very on point.
Yes.
Land mammals living under the sea, what are Muslims in America today? It's this sort of racist, let's stick our head in the sand. Let's blame people for our problems. Let's ignore global warming. All these themes are present in this madcap, insane musical, which, by the way, isn't written by one person. It's like David Bowie, John Legend, Cyndi Lauper, Lady Antebellum.
Different songs.
All have written, Sarah Bareilles, They Might Be Giants, all wrote songs.
I like that.
And the whole thing coheres. It's absolutely...
It feels very
incredible.
60s to me. It feels like some of that experimental theater in the 60s. I can't imagine it.
When you say that, I think, then it wouldn't work. But it does work. It's an incredible, it's actually a little Baz Luhrmann-esque. It's everything in the kitchen sink. And the sort of sheer cacophony, the sheer sort of overwhelmingness of it really works.
I'm hearing like Yellow Submarine. I'm hearing like that kind of.
Yes, right.
So if you don't know the cartoon very well, like James and I don't, can you still enjoy the musical?
That's a good question. Having seen every episode multiple times,
you can't answer that question.
But I, you know what you should do? You should watch the cartoon. I mean, it's Nickelodeon's oldest, longest-running show. It is a huge cultural phenomenon.
I used to watch when I babysat my friend's daughter, and I would space out.
Okay. SpongeBob SquarePants runs through September 2nd at the Palace Theater in New York.
Oh, that's going to go on for longer, isn't it?
It's going to run around.
Yeah.
So, okay, take a quick break. When we come back, Resistor of the Week and the number one thing that made us go, wow! So, Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. We've entered that final stage where we reveal the number one thing that made us go, wow.
Wow, man. Wow.
Number one.
Give us a 411.
We're talking about the legalization of recreational marijuana in the state of California, and specifically in our city of Los Angeles.
Reefer madness in Hollywood.
Now, James, you said you were going up the street and people were just smoking openly.
It was crazy. It was a madhouse. It was bedlam. We were driving down the street, Blake and I, and we looked over at the stop sign. There was like an outdoor cafe. There were people just smoking doobies, just light sparking up, just getting high.
And then he looked at Blake and he was lighting up.
And it's true. And it was like, I thought to myself, well, this is madness. This is anarchy in the streets. What's going on?
Are you a pothead?
No, I'm not a pothead at all. In fact, I don't like pot. I feel really left out of this. In fact, on Twitter yesterday, I said, I asked my followers, should I become a pothead or not?
And they said?
Overwhelmingly, they said yes.
Yeah. Take the edge off.
Exactly. But I'm just one of those people, every time I've ever smoked pot, I just look at my hand for 3 hours and think everyone's looking at me.
Sounds fun to me. You should start smoking more.
Different strokes, different folks. Because I never knew where marijuana was going to take me, because it could take me way down.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go up, guy.
Well, then it's just that Tom and I in
the past,
in our problematic areas,
we were always
up.
brands that can lift you up.
Well, there's sativa and indica,
you.
and one goes up and one goes down.
Yeah.
I did drive by. I was in Santa Monica Boulevard last night, going from the grocery store. Very exciting. And the place right in Santa Monica near like Orlando, line around the block.
Okay, but here's the thing about that. I'm a curmudgeon and I'm old school enough that I like my drugs to be underground. I like going into a back alley and meeting a drug dealer. I like sneaking into a closet to smoke or to do whatever. I don't like the fact that
there's people who don't like gay being okay.
No, I don't. I don't like gay being okay. I like having sex in bathrooms and in bushes. I don't like it when it's out.
I have my second genius idea of the show. The first was Will Smith as Bill Cosby. The second is you should get your own dispensary that is all like a speakeasy, like it's like a drug thing. It should have mattresses and like actors who are just like strung out in the
like
corner.
A crack den. Yes. Like an old time crack den. And
Ye old crack den.
Ye old crack den.
Let's do it here, the gallery.
See, to me, when it's out in the open, it takes away that forbidden fruit
I
thing.
like that.
I like the fact that it's naughty and
wrong. Put you in the back and put you in the bathroom.
It's sort of like the ice cream museum meets a dispensary.
Right.
I love it. Instagrammable moments.
I will just say there's only 4 places, they're all in Hollywood. There's only 4 places where you can go buy it currently. Did you know that? There's only 4.
The one that my mother goes to for her arthritis is the Korean one on Melrose in Fairfax.
All right. And did you also know that pot is a very thirsty plant? That it takes something like 6 gallons of water per day per
It's got
plant?
dry mouth.
Yes, exactly. Twice what grapes need. So I'm going to stick to wine.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm so green. Okay, so what's the resistor of the week? I mean, not what.
You know how, I don't know, New Year's resolutions, what are we going to do? There was an article I saw that someone said, less angry political posts. And you're like, no.
Right.
But that anger, when it's unfocused, does feel a little
angry
and destructive. And there is our resistor of the week.
Are you saying that about my Facebook
No, I'm
feed?
saying I'm trying
to anger.
No, I'm right there with you. Right. But Ashley Marie Preston, who's this beautiful trans woman who made news and went viral this past year because she attacked Caitlyn Jenner
at the GLAAD Awards
at some event, and
I was there,
and she sort of just she saw Caitlyn, she knew her, and said that she was a fucking fraud. Miss Ashley Marie Preston is running for office in California.
Bless. Yes.
So I just think she's an amazing example of someone
putting your money where your mouth is.
Yes, taking that anger and putting it into local politics. Everyone says if you want to do something, join. And I've met her a couple of times, and she's really persuasive and really smart and fearless in a way that rattles the core a little bit. But I would love to see her do well. And her tweet was amazing. On December 31st, she announced, she goes, "Running is never an option unless I'm running for California State Assembly, District 54. She has a way with words, and she's very inspiring.
That's so good.
And
when is the election?
November 18.
For 2018. Yeah,
And I love it. I love that she's so outspoken. I love to see her channel that energy into politics. I hope she does well. I hope politics doesn't take her down. I hope she has the effect on
I'll vote for her.
Local community.
Yeah.
I'll vote for her too.
I will too.
All right.
That's all we have time for today. Tune in to the Trixie and Catcher Show Wednesdays on Viceland. $1 Million Listings LA is back. Watch it Thursdays, 9 p.m. Bravo.
Got amazing ratings over the holidays. It's doing
Huge
very well. Big stuff
ratings.
is happening. Watch.
And also, may I urge you to go check out Wow Presents Plus. You get the first month free. That's wow-presents.com. First month free. Less than the price of a latte. $3.99 a month. Less than the price of a latte. And what else we got? Oh, you can watch us on the Wow Report too, right? You can get all of this glorious radio in sound and vision.
On the YouTube.
On the YouTubes. Okay, so same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow!
Goodbye, everybody.